Hello, my dear sleepy listener. You've found your way here at just the right moment, not to study history, but to let it carry you softly into rest. Tonight, you'll drift high into the Andes, where stone walls echo with ancient footsteps and golden sunbeams touch the peaks. We're going back to a time of mountain empires, sacred valleys, and messengers who run through clouds. You're about to walk the story of the Inca, not as a distant observer, but as a quiet presence within their world. Before you drift away into peaceful slumber, please take a moment to like this video, leave a gentle comment about your favorite historical moment, and subscribe to keep these soothing tales coming your way. I'd love to know, where are you listening from tonight? What time zone are you gently fading into? Now, dim the lights, settle in, and let these gentle whispers of history lull you into sleep. You awaken beneath a sky brushed in gold, breathing the thin, sacred air of the Andes. The city of Cusco is still quiet, not yet the pulse of an empire, but its stones feel older than memory. Around you, the hills shimmer with a soft mist, and the people murmur about a new ruler with a fire in his eyes. He is called Pachacuti. His name means he who overturned space and time, a bold title for a man who begins with only a small kingdom. But you sense something stirring, something vast about to unfurl. The year is 1438. You follow him silently as he walks along the sacred road, his steps steady, his gaze fixed on a future no one else quite sees yet. The Chanca, fierce rivals, are advancing. The city is nearly overrun. Most nobles flee, but not Pachacuti. He remains. And then, something miraculous. Stories say he called upon the stones of Cusco to rise, that the very rocks obeyed him. Perhaps it's a tale, or perhaps there's truth beneath it, like the roots of a hidden tree. What is certain is this: the Chanca were defeated, Cusco held. And Pachacuti did not just rebuild the city, he reshaped the very idea of what it meant to be Inca. You walk beside laborers as they lay out stones with uncanny precision, so exact you cannot slip even a blade of grass between them. This is not architecture for shelter alone. It's something sacred, a fusion of earth, sky, and vision. Every stone tells you we're here forever. Pachacuti is not merely a warrior. He is a planner, a poet of empire. Under his rule, you watch the kingdom of Cusco swell into something new. Tawantinsuyu, the land of 4 quarters, one realm, divided like petals of a flower, radiating from this very place. You run fingers along freshly carved symbols, sacred felines, serpents, condors, each tied to a layer of life. There is the world above, where the gods dwell, the world below, where ancestors sleep, and this world here, between breath and stone. In the cool of morning, you watch him consult priests who read signs in coca leaves and stars. Time is not counted in hours here, but in harvests, festivals, and cosmic rhythms, and at the heart of it all stands the Sapa Inca, the unique one, the emperor, who is both man and sun. Later, as dusk folds over the mountains, you hear laughter from a distant courtyard. Some say that Pachacuti was obsessed with the order, that even his jokes had rules. He once supposedly demanded that all llamas in a parade wear identical earrings, lest the gods take offense. Whether it's true or not, the image stays with you, a procession of proud, bejeweled llamas walking with regal calm. But even now, as the empire rises, scholars still wonder, did Pachacuti truly build everything attributed to him? Some argue the foundations of Tawantinsuyu were laid before his time by forgotten rulers whose names are carved only in stone. Others suggest he seized the glory for works begun long before, and yet none can deny this. He was the spark that lit the mountains, the one who imagined something eternal and then began to make it so. Tonight, you sleep within the breath of that vision. You rise with the sun, its light stretching slowly across the highland rooftops of Cusco. The air is cool, laced with the scent of damp earth and burning Palo Santo. As you step quietly through the stone streets, the city feels different, more awake, more confident, more golden. The transformation under Pachacuti is now well underway. He has done more than just defend the city. He has reimagined it, not merely as a place, but as a sacred diagram. You walk the planned lines of Cusco's layout, shaped like a great puma, with the Sacsayhuaman fortress as its fierce head. At the belly of this cosmic beast sits the Coricancha, the temple of the sun. You pass through its golden gates. Inside, the walls are lined with sheets of gold that shimmer in candlelight like sunlight captured and stilled. A garden of golden maize glows softly in the corner, not painted, not embroidered, but entirely made from precious metal. Gold is not wealth here. It is light. It is the sweat of the sun. Priests in dark robes chant slowly as you drift past. Their voices rise and fall like wind brushing across the Andes. You pause beneath a golden disc where the Sapa Inca receives divine messages. When Pachacuti enters, barefoot but crowned, you feel the hush ripple through the room like a soft drum beat. He does not smile, but he sees everything, every gesture, every offering, every misstep. He is more than ruler. He is the sun's shadow on earth. And yet, you notice he always walks with a slight limp. Some say it came from a battle wound. Others say it was from birth. The stories vary, but he carries it with dignity, not hidden, not explained. Just there, later in the day, you visit one of the new stone schools for young noble boys, sons of lords from across the growing empire. You listen as they learn Quechua, the imperial tongue, and how to read the calendar's cycles. The walls here bear painted diagrams of constellations, not as distant stars but as living beings. Foxes, llamas, serpents, dancing across the night sky. In a corner, a boy carves a feline into a sliver of wood. When asked why, he murmurs, "Because I was born when the puma rose." Here, time and identity are woven into the cosmos. You wander out into the city's beating heart, the Hakaipata, the central plaza. It is wide, flat, and ceremonial, a stage for rituals that mark the turn of seasons, victories, and divine whispers. You pass stone-carved water channels that seem to hum beneath your feet. Clean, cold water from the mountains flows here, part of a carefully designed hydraulic system that feeds the city like veins. And nearby, you notice workers from faraway regions, jungle men with toucan feathers in their hair, coastal women with woven baskets of dried fish. They wear different clothes, speak different dialects, yet here they gather beneath the Sapa Inca's golden gaze. It is not merely a kingdom anymore, it is becoming an empire of many peoples. Still, not all join freely. Some villages you pass whisper of tribute, cloth, labour, crops, required by the state. A child in one town shows you her woven tunic with tears near the shoulders. She says they work long hours now, because the sun must eat. It's not cruel, but it's not entirely kind either. The empire grows because it must. And here's a curious thing: you hear a tale from an old stonemason that Pachacuti had dreams, vivid and constant, that he once claimed a spirit from Lake Titicaca appeared to him in the form of a flaming bird, offering a vision of the empire's future boundaries. The bird, he said, flew toward the sea. Did it truly happen? Or did the emperor simply tell it well enough that others believed? Historians still wonder if these dreams were inspiration or propaganda. But in Cusco, dreams have weight. They become blueprints. As night settles, you sit by a quiet fire on the city's edge, the flames reflecting softly in your eyes. Overhead, the Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of crushed pearl. The Inca call it Mayu, the celestial river, twin to the Urubamba below. Everything here has a mirror above, a sacred symmetry. You hear drums in the distance, steady, slow, and pulsing with life. Cusco is no longer a city of survival. It is a city of vision, of symmetry, of sun and stone. You close your eyes beneath its golden breath, wrapped in silence older than empire. You awaken to the soft crunch of sandals on packed earth. Dozens of them, maybe hundreds. The sound rises like wind whispering across the Andes. It is morning, and the royal road lies before you, not just a path, but a lifeline. You've stepped into a world where messages fly without wings, and the empire moves without wheels, stretching thousands of kilometers across mountains, deserts, and jungles. The Capac Nyan, the great Inca road, connects the 4 quarters of Tawantinsuyu. You walk along its edge now, the stones fitted tightly, weaving through cloud forests and over snow-capped peaks with quiet determination. There are no beasts of burden large enough to carry people here. No carts, no wheels, and yet the system works, elegantly, efficiently. You see it in motion before your eyes. From the mist ahead, a runner appears, barefoot, lean, and fast, a chasqui. He carries a small pouch, a conch shell, and perhaps a knotted string of quipu. He doesn't stop, not entirely, only slows enough to pass the message to the next runner waiting at Tampu, a way station spaced along the road. Then he vanishes down the path, a blur of muscle and breath. Messages can travel over 200 kilometers in a single day this way. A whisper from the emperor in Cusco could reach the farthest edges of the empire faster than any army. You pause at one of the Tampu shelters, where weary runners rest and chew coca leaves to ease altitude and fatigue. One offers you a taste. The bitterness surprises you, but soon the world feels lighter, your breath deeper. You understand why this humble leaf is sacred. Nearby, a family prepares food for passing officials, roasted maize, quinoa, and chunyo, a freeze-dried potato that crumbles like chalk but stores for years. You try one, polite. It tastes like the mountain wind dry, strange, and oddly comforting. The road itself is more than utility. It is lined in places with carved markers, shrines, and small ceremonial stations called apachitas, where travellers leave stones in gratitude or reverence. You add one, gently, to a growing pile, a pebble for safe passage. Some parts of the road are paved so smoothly, you feel like you're walking on polished bone. In others, it hugs cliffs so narrow that a misstep might send you into clouds or stone. You grip the wall carefully, reminded that the Inca did not believe in laziness, even for geography. But there's beauty here too. You pass orchid-covered trails and hear waterfalls singing through dense cloud forest. A toucan watches from a tree limb, cocking its head in silence. Then you emerge from the woods into sun-splashed hills and fields of quinoa rippling like velvet. Historians still debate just how large this road network was. Some claim it spanned more than 40,000 kilometers, connecting not just towns but altars, palaces, and ports. Others argue the numbers are exaggerated, and much of what we call Inca roads may have predated them, improved rather than built from scratch. Still, what you see is undeniably monumental. Not just a road, but a spine of empire. Along the way, you notice a curious sight: a llama wearing bells, walking in single file behind others. The Inca trained these beasts not just for carrying loads, but for coordination. Each has a distinct role. You wonder whether they ever get bored, but perhaps they're simply too focused on not tumbling off the side of a cliff. A child waves to you from a village above, perched on a terrace like a swallow's nest. You wave back. Her family likely tends potatoes and keeps guinea pigs for food. The land may be steep, but the people are rooted deep. At a crossroads, a small shrine catches your attention. A local man tells you this is where the wind changes its name. You ask him what that means, and he shrugs. The mountain knows, he says, as if that's enough. And here, maybe it is. As the sun begins to fall behind the ridges, the road glows faintly, not from gold, but from use. Each stone seems polished by centuries of passage, memory, and repetition. You find a resting place beneath a sloped rock, where the stars begin to show themselves one by one. You hear another runner in the distance, the rhythm of footfalls soft as a heartbeat, and you realize the Inca Empire doesn't ride horses, it runs. You awaken beside a fire that's barely more than embers now, nestled near a Tampu outpost along the high road. A cool morning mist clings to the valley, and somewhere nearby, a flute sings a slow, sleepy tune. Before the runners begin again, before the sun even rises fully over the ridges, you follow the sound of soft murmuring into a nearby hut. Inside, you find a man seated cross-legged on a woven mat, his fingers dancing through coloured threads. He is a quipucamayoc, a keeper of the quipu, and the knots in his lap are not decorations, they are knowledge. Before you can speak, he holds up a single-strand brown string, tiny knots tied in a certain rhythm. This one, he says quietly, is a record of maize collected from 3 villages. He picks up another red thread, larger knots, tied in a different direction. This one tells of births and deaths last moon. You watch as his fingers move, and it feels like watching someone play music without sound. These threads, this woven code, are how the Empire remembers. No writing, no scrolls, no alphabet, just knots. It's astonishing. And also puzzling, for all we know. The exact meaning of the quipu is still hidden. Scholars today can read numbers from them, quantities, census records, tribute. But whether they also recorded stories or spoken language that remains a gentle mystery. Some suggest certain colour patterns and knot combinations may be mnemonic, hints for poetry, or oral history recitations. Others believe quipu may have been a fully developed written system, now lost without key translators. You glance back at the quipucamayoc and wonder how many secrets die with each keeper. He chuckles softly and offers you a strand. You run your fingers along its tight little notches, some single, some doubled, some loose and frayed. Each one feels deliberate, like a heartbeat encoded in thread. He tells you that quipucamayocs were trained from a young age, selected for memory and care. They travelled across regions, recording information with astonishing accuracy. In some provinces, they served as tax auditors, in others as genealogists or scribes. A few are even said to hold sacred knowledge, ceremonial formulas only repeated at specific times of year. You watch as he carefully rolls up a long quipu into a pouch made of vicuña wool and tucks it away. Then he stands and gestures toward a small stone platform outside, near a plaza where community leaders are gathering. There, you observe something almost theatrical but utterly practical. But a provincial official has arrived from Cusco. He stands tall, flanked by 2 runners and several assistants. The quipucamayoc steps forward, presents the quipu, and recites aloud the population of the village, their crop yields, and how many workers were sent to help on state projects this season. No scroll, no paperwork, just memory, string, and ritual. You glance around and see the locals listening respectfully. There is no suspicion. The quipu is the truth here, not because it cannot lie, but because it has been treated as sacred. There's something deeply human in that, the belief that the memory of your village lives in a strand of knotted wool. After the meeting ends, you notice a young boy watching curiously. He's just begun training. His fingers are clumsy, his threads uneven. He grins when he sees you watching. "One day," he says proudly, "I will remember an entire mountain's worth of numbers." You nod, smiling. Later that afternoon, the quipucamayoc shows you one final piece, a quipu with more colours than the others, and more knots. He tells you it was found in a village long ago and passed down. No one now can read it. Maybe it is just numbers, he whispers. Or maybe it holds a story no one has told in 100 years. You sit with that thought, a story tied in silence. As night returns and the fire crackles gently at your side again, you find yourself watching the stars, scattered, distant, yet somehow connected, like the quipu, like everything in the Andes, threads of meaning waiting to be understood. You awaken before dawn on a stone terrace high in the sacred valley, where the air is thin, the earth damp, and the sky still holding its breath. The horizon glows faintly, not with fire, but with anticipation. Today, you will climb, not just any mountain, but one made holy through time and use. Above you, stone stairs wind upward through moss-covered ledges and quiet groves of wild lupin flowers. The path is steep, but every step feels meaningful, like you're walking towards something that is always just beyond reach. You're ascending to a temple of the sun. Along the trail, carved niches appear, small, altar-like openings in stone walls, where travellers place offerings, coca leaves, pebbles, dried flowers, bits of coloured thread. You leave a coca leaf, tucking it carefully into a crevice. Not because you believe it will change the weather, but because everyone else does. And something in you wants to join the whispering chain. As you climb, the air grows sharper. You feel the wind press against your body like a memory you've forgotten. A lone condor circles far above, black wings stretched against the soft blue sky. You pause to watch it, remembering that the condor is sacred here, one of the 3 spiritual animals that guide the Inca world. The serpent for the underworld, the puma for this world, and the condor for the heavens. You reach the temple just as the sun breaks over the distant peaks. Light washes across the stonework, igniting the carved edges in a warm golden sheen. At the heart of the structure sits a polished slab of granite, angled precisely to catch the sun's first rays. The priests call it an intihuatana, a hitching post of the sun. They believe this stone anchors the sun to the earth, that, in doing so, it tethers time itself. You sit in silence as the light warms your face. The priest beside you, robed in ochre and feathers, hums a melody so old it may predate words. Smoke rises from a nearby dish, sweet, bitter, resinous. The air is full of sage, ash, and something you can't quite name. There are no statues of Inti, the sun god. The Inca do not believe the divine needs form. The sun is the god. No intermediaries, only warmth and light and rhythm. A priest whispers that during the Inti Raymi festival, held during the winter solstice, this temple swells with colour and music. Thousands gather in Cusco to welcome the sun's return, to feed it chicha, chant its praises, and renew the bond between sky and soil. But here, in this quiet hour, it feels more intimate, more eternal. As the ceremony ends, you step into the shadow of a stone wall and trace its shape with your fingertips. Each block fits with astonishing precision, angled subtly to withstand earthquakes, a technology born not of luck, but of deep understanding. You overhear a young apprentice ask his teacher why the Inca didn't use mortar. The elder laughs softly. Why tie stone with clay when the mountain teaches how to balance? You smile at the thought. Let the mountain teach. But even here, at these lofty heights, not all is certain. Historians continue to debate the full meaning of the Intihuatana stones scattered across Inca sites. Were they true sundials, ritual thrones, or something else entirely? Some believe they held astronomical significance far deeper than we understand, tuned not only to solstices, but to planetary cycles we've only recently rediscovered. You press your palm to the stone. It is cool, but humming, as if it remembers. Descending later in the day, you pass a group of workers restoring the terraces below. The levels stretch like green waves down the mountain's side, each one growing maize or tubers, carefully rotated with the seasons. You learn that each level maintains its own microclimate. The Inca, you realize, have mastered vertical farming centuries ahead of modern engineers. At the lowest terrace, a small canal gurgles with clear water from a mountain spring. A boy dips a clay cup into the stream and offers it to you with both hands. You drink slowly. It tastes of stone and sky and time. As night returns to the highlands, you curl up beneath a woven blanket, your head resting near a carved llama figurine left as an offering. The stars blink into place, and once more, the Milky Way stretches across the heavens, not random, not scattered, but deliberate. Above you, the condor glides silently beneath the moon. You awaken with the first sliver of light brushing across the mountain terraces. The village is already stirring, not with clamour, but with gentle routine. You rise with them, among farmers who measure their mornings not by clock or calendar, but by the curve of the sun on stone and the smell of wet soil warming beneath their sandals. You join them on a narrow path that cuts along the hillsides like a ribbon. Below, the terraces, or andines, spill down the mountain like green staircases, carved with such precision they seem not built, but grown. Some are dry and dusty, others glisten with dew. Each has a different crop. Each obeys a different rule of altitude, temperature, and air. You follow a young woman with a bundle of cut quinoa on her back. Her steps are firm, familiar. She shows you how different plants thrive at different heights. Maize down below, potatoes in the middle bands, and bitter, hardy tubers higher still. The mountain, she says with a smile, is not one field, it is many. layered like the feathers of a hawk. At a higher terrace, an older man crouches over tiny sprouts. His fingers move gently, reverently. He tells you of chunyo, the freeze-dried potato that feeds armies and traders alike. You learn how it's made laid out at night in the frost, stomped barefoot to squeeze out moisture, then left under the sun for days. The result is lightweight, long-lasting and deeply traditional. He offers you one, rehydrated in a stew with herbs and bits of llama meat. It's chewy and earthy, not quite delicious, but honest. This fed my grandfather when he served the Inca, he says. And it will feed my son, nearby. A small shrine catches your eye. It's made of pebbles and bones, with corn cobs placed neatly beside it. The farmers still leave offerings to Pachamama, the Earth Mother. You follow suit, placing a single kernel at the base. It feels small, but the act feels ancient. The field is quiet, but not silent. You hear the buzz of insects, the flap of cloth in the breeze, and the rhythmic scraping of stone tools on dry soil. And somewhere behind you, a gentle bleating. A herd of llamas ambles along a trail, led by a boy with windburned cheeks and a flute. The animals are draped in coloured tassels, not decorative, but informative. Red means they've come from the lowlands. Green, from the jungle's edge. The boy says they remember their roots better than he does. One of the llamas wears a necklace of bells. You ask why? That one is stubborn. The boy shrugs. She won't walk unless she hears herself. You smile, imagining a llama so proud she needs applause just to continue. At midday, you rest beside a storage house built of mud and stone, a kolkha, where state officials keep food for lean times. Inside, it is cool and dark. Rows of maize hang in neat braids from wooden beams. You realize this is no ordinary granary. It's a warehouse for the Empire's survival. These supplies are redistributed across regions during drought or hardship, a safety net woven into the landscape. Historians still puzzle over the sheer scale of Inca food management. Some suggest they may have fed millions without markets or money. No coins, no shops, only a system of shared labour and centralised planning. Was it truly so efficient, or did its success rely on constant expansion and control, even now? The answer lies somewhere between admiration and question mark. You pass through a village where women dye alpaca wool using cochineal beetles crushed into crimson paste. One woman shows you how different minerals in the water shift the colour, from blood red to soft rose to purple black. She laughs, saying the Empire has as many shades of red as it has gods. As evening falls, you sit near a clay stove where a grandmother stirs a thick porridge of amaranth and squash. She hums to herself, stopping only to flick a fly away with a strand of woven grass. She offers you a bowl. You sip it slowly, tasting layers of warmth and thyme. The children gather close, their faces round and flushed from the altitude, leaning against their grandmother like kittens in a pile. The stars begin to appear again, and you lie back against a stone wall warmed by the day's sun. The Andes rise around you like a cradle. You close your eyes, knowing that tonight you're held by a mountain that feeds as it shelters, and a people who farm not against the earth, but with it. You awaken to the faint sound of bells, soft and distant, like chimes floating through mist. When you open your eyes, the world is already in motion. The path through the valley is crowded today, not with traders or soldiers, but with a grand and solemn caravan. You've stumbled into one of the Empire's most sacred spectacles, the Royal Llama Procession. Hundreds of llamas move in graceful formation, each one adorned with tassels, beads, and golden ornaments that catch the morning light. Their thick wool sways gently with every step. You watch them pass, their expressions unreadable, regal, indifferent, perhaps just concerned with their footing, but the air around them feels reverent. They are not merely animals. Today, they are offerings. At the front of the line, a priest walks barefoot, holding a small gold disc high above his head. Behind him, 2 young acolytes scatter flower petals, orchids and marigolds, onto the path, creating a trail of colour for the feet of the emperor's sacred herd. And there, near the centre, you see a special llama. She is white, flecked with silver grey. Her ears are pierced with tiny golden rings, and on her back is a bundle wrapped in fine cloth. Inside is food, chicha, coca leaves, and small tokens from every province, symbolic gifts to the gods, sent from all corners of Tawantinsuyu. The high priest stops at an open field surrounded by carved stones and ancient markers. You find a spot nearby, sitting quietly among farmers and nobles, children and elders. The ceremony begins. A hush falls over the gathering. The priests offer prayers in Quechua, their words slow and melodic. One of them reaches into the bundle and raises a handful of maize flour, tossing it skyward. The wind catches it and swirls it around like soft rain. Then, in a moment of intense stillness, a llama is led forward. She is calm, almost serene. The handler whispers gently into her ear, and a final blessing is given. She is sacrificed quickly, quiet, without spectacle. You do not see blood. Only the briefest gesture and then stillness. For the Inca, this is not violence, it is balance, a sacred offering, part of the reciprocal relationship between humans and gods. And yet, not all offerings are real. You learn later that for some rituals, especially public festivals, llama effigies made of dough or wood are used instead. Even among a people so intertwined with the spiritual, there is a quiet practicality, a way of honouring tradition without exhausting it. As the day unfolds, the llamas are herded into a circular pen where officials count and inspect them. Each is tagged with coloured yarn to designate its origin and destination. Some are gifts for temples, others will accompany travelling nobles or carry goods to the farthest provinces. A particularly stubborn llama refuses to budge. Her handler sighs and pulls a flute from his pouch, playing a short, high-pitched tune. The llama blinks, sighs, and resumes walking as if she simply needed a little music to get going. You chuckle softly. Even royal llamas have personalities. Nearby, a young girl shows you a small clay figurine, a llama no bigger than your thumb. "It's for my cousin," she says shyly. "He's going to Cusco to study. It will protect him." Later, a scribe reads out the records. How many llamas were born in each province? How many were gifted? How many perished? These are inscribed not on parchment, but in quipu, the knotted threads you now recognize. Once more, memory lives in string. Historians still debate the full role of llamas in the Inca world. Some argue they were nearly divine, linked to myths of origin and the stars. Others view them as pragmatic beasts of burden, central, yes, but not sacred. The truth, as often, lies in between. In their fur, their breath, their quietness, llamas carried not just goods, but the weight of empire. As dusk settles, the procession turns back toward the road. The llamas disappear into the distance, their bells fading into the twilight. You remain seated on the soft earth, watching the dust rise and settle again. Tonight, you fall asleep under a star-streaked sky, your dreams filled with soft hooves, golden earrings, and the gentle dignity of animals that walk alongside gods. You awaken in a quiet village nestled between steep Andean slopes, where the walls are low, the roofs thatched, and the fields edged with flowering cactus. There's a scent of roasted maize in the air, and laughter drifts through the open plaza. But beneath the warmth and song, you sense something else, something recent. This village was not always Inca. You watch as officials in finely woven tunics speak with the local leaders. Their tone is respectful, their gifts generous, bolts of cloth, tools, even a few silver ornaments. A feast has been arranged. Chicha, the sacred maize beer, is being poured from decorated vessels. A singer begins a slow, haunting melody that seems to wrap the plaza in sound. The Inca have come not as invaders, but as persuaders. This is the softer face of expansion, not through fire, but through feast. You learn that many villages are first approached with offers of alliance, promises of inclusion in the sacred order of Tawantinsuyu. Temples will be built, roads extended, their crops protected, their people counted, and yet not everyone celebrates. In a quiet corner, you see an elder sit with arms crossed, her eyes skeptical. She does not touch her chicha. Her daughter translates softly. She remembers when we worshipped the jaguar here. Now we must praise the sun. The Inca do not forbid local gods, but they place Inti, the sun god, above all others. Subtle pressure replaces violence, most of the time. You overhear a young man joke that if the goal doesn't convince you, the soldiers will. Everyone laughs, softly. You observe a ceremony of mitmak, or population relocation. A group of families is preparing to move, reassigned by imperial decree to another region hundreds of kilometers away. It is not punishment, at least not openly. It's policy. The idea is clever, if chilling. By mixing populations, the Inca prevent rebellion, spread loyalty, and ensure every corner of the empire understands the empire's voice. You help a woman lift a bundle of belongings. She smiles politely but does not make eye contact. Her brother murmurs, "We will plant maize where we do not belong." Still, the Inca offer much in return. Terraces are built, roads arrive, temples are raised with help from state laborers. Children are taught Quechua, the administrative language, binding everyone by word even if not by heart. And as part of the welcome, there is often a gift of wives. You watch as local men, particularly warriors or chiefs, are offered women from Cusco, trained in state customs and loyal to the court. It's framed as honor, but also clearly strategy. The empire grows through families as much as roads. You meet one such woman, her face gentle but distant. She tells you, "I was trained to brew, to weave, and to bear sons who belong to the Sapa Inca." She says it with no bitterness, only practice. But when she offers you a cup of chicha, her hands tremble slightly. You sip, the drink sour and rich. It tastes like change. Later that evening, you sit with the local boy who shows you how he is learning both his native tongue and Quechua. He sings a song about the mountains in one language, then recites a poem about the sun in the other. He seems proud, and yet you wonder what language he will pass to his children. Historians still discuss how coercive or voluntary Inca expansion truly was. Some view it as a brilliant system of integration, a benevolent unification through infrastructure and ritual. Others see it as calculated control, masked by ceremony. Perhaps, as with most empires, it was both. You lie back on a woven mat near the village plaza, the celebration still humming in the background. The stars peek through the clouds, quiet and watching. The village is now part of the empire. The sun god has been honored. The records have been taken. But somewhere in the hills, the jaguar still walks, unseen, uninvited, and unforgotten. You awaken at dawn to the sound of a shell horn echoing between stone walls. The city is Cusco, heart of the Inca world, and its rhythm hums beneath your feet like a slow drum beat. Today, you walk its invisible lines, not just streets and buildings, but something deeper. Cusco is not a city of chaos and growth. It is designed deliberately, symbolically, geometrically. You are standing in the center of an empire that radiates outward like a golden sunburst. The Inca call their realm Tawantinsuyu, the land of four quarters, and Cusco is the navel of that land, its axis mundi, the center from which all directions, all peoples, all obligations flow. You wander through the Haukaipata, the great plaza where festivals unfold like woven tapestries in motion. It feels enormous and yet precise. Each side of the square corresponds with one of the Suyus, the four provinces of the empire: Chinchasuyu to the northwest, Antisuyu to the northeast, Kuntisuyu to the southwest, and Kulasuyu to the southeast. The layout is not random. You follow stone alleys that lead like veins from the central plaza, each one tied to a different sacred route. Your guide, a cheerful elderly official with a bone-handled walking stick, tells you that everything in Cusco points somewhere meaningful. Roads don't just lead away, they connect to stars, shrines, rivers, and responsibilities. He shows you the CK system, invisible lines that radiate out from the Coricancha temple like a sun's rays. Each line contains shrines, huacas, and sacred spots that must be maintained, visited, prayed over. Entire families are assigned to care for specific points. It's not just geography, it's sacred duty. He taps his stick against a small carved stone beside a doorway. This, he says, is both a calendar and a law. You look up at the wall. The stones fit perfectly, polished smooth without mortar. Some say Cusco's walls could withstand earthquakes better than modern buildings. Others argue that the builders understood more than stone, that they understood balance. You stroll past buildings whose angles align with the solstices. Shadows fall exactly where they should. Some doorways frame sunrises, others catch moonlight. This is not superstition. This is architecture braided with astronomy. You enter a courtyard where young nobles train. They are learning math, not in numbers, but in knots and lengths of cord. You recognize the technique, now quipu logic. A teacher explains how tribute is recorded not just in amount, but in place, which Suyu gave what, when, and why. As you wander through the Coricancha again, the Temple of the Sun gleams even in shadow. Each offering room corresponds to a Suyu. Each priest represents a direction. You realize with quiet awe that the entire empire is mapped within this one structure, a scale model of sacred geography. Outside, you hear a procession moving toward the Sacsayhuaman fortress, high above the city. The great stones there, some weighing over 100 tons, have been fitted together like the jaws of a puma. Indeed, Locals say the whole city is a puma in shape, with the fortress as its head and the Coricancha as its belly. A child points this out to you proudly. We live in the belly of the beast, he says, giggling. Later, you sit beneath a flowering molla tree beside a young weaver who speaks softly as she threads. When we weave, she says, we follow the lines of Cusco, a line for the river, a line for the sun, a line for the dead. Her cloth is not just decoration, it is a quiet map. Historians still question how centralized or coordinated this symbolic city planning truly was. Some believe it was highly controlled, an imperial mind imposing order. Others argue that much of what we see is interpreted after the fact, symbols assigned long after the stones were laid. But to those who live here, the symbols are real, felt, breathing. As the day fades, the lines of Cusco grow softer, shadows melting into stone. You lie down beneath an overhang, the Puma city wrapping around you like a stone embrace. The four quarters of the empire are quiet now, but their center, this place, still beats like a heart. You awaken to the scent of incense, something earthy and bitter, carried by the morning breeze. The sound that greets you isn't birdsong or flute, but quiet footsteps over woven mats. You're in a long stone hall near the edge of Cusco, one you haven't entered before. And today, you're not alone. They are already seated. Figures dressed in embroidered robes, seated upright, silent and still. Their faces are sun-darkened, wrinkled, but not quite lifeless. They are the emperors who ruled before, the Amalki, the preserved dead of Inca royalty. Here, death is not departure, it is continuity. You sit in a shadowed corner, watching as attendants approach each mummy with care. They whisper greetings, adjust garments, anoint foreheads. Some even offer chicha, held to mouths long stilled. This is no idle tribute. These mummies are part of the state. They continue to own property, speak through priests, and even attend feasts. It is hard to know what to feel. Reverence, unease, awe. The air is heavy with stillness, not stagnant, but filled with attention. You can feel it. The most recent of the Maliki sits near the far wall, draped in deep red and gold. His chair is carved with sunbursts and feathers. You recognize him, Pachacuti, the Earthshaker. The emperor who dreamed Tawantinsuyu into being. He died long ago, and yet, here he is, present, unblinking. You notice something strange. Each mummy is kept in a different part of the building, almost like a noble household. Indeed, you soon learn that these dead rulers retain servants, lands, and even political influence. Their estates are managed by their descendants, and their honor is defended like any living noble's reputation. One official refers to them respectfully as the still-walking lords. Some of them are taken out during festivals, paraded on litters through Cusco streets, clothed and decorated. They participate in royal debates, and offerings are made in their names. In a society without writing, memory matters more than permanence, and the mummies, carefully preserved in dry mountain air, become vessels of collective memory. You glance at one whose robe has been patched many times. He's clearly older, less known. A younger priest stands near him, mumbling as if unsure of what to say. Later, you overhear someone whisper, "His lands were taken. He has no more voice. Even the dead, it seems, can be politically silenced." A small boy walks past holding a clay flute carved with sun motifs. "That one is my ancestor," he says, pointing proudly. "He still listens to me." You nod, unsure how to reply. You step outside for air and find a shaded garden. A priest joins you, his robes modest, his hands stained from ceremonial dyes. You ask him why the dead are still treated like rulers. He thinks for a long moment, then he says softly, because they never stopped being who they were. He tells you the word Malki doesn't just mean mummy, it also means root, the base of a tree, or a thread in weaving. The dead, in Inca belief, are not gone. They're the foundation that feeds the living, the silence under every ceremony, the breath behind every blessing. And yet, not all historians agree on the full extent of this practice. Some say these mummies were symbolic, stand-ins for the concept of ancestry. Others argue they were literal figures of power, still consulted and honoured like living nobles. Without written records, we live among theories and clues, fragments of whispers. You return to the hall, now empty of visitors. The light is softer now. Each mummy remains motionless, eyes hidden beneath dark veils or folded cloth. But something in you senses attention. You bow slightly, unsure why, then step back out into the golden dusk. That night, you sleep beneath thick wool, wondering whether your dreams are entirely your own, or whether someone, centuries old, is still listening. You awaken to a hum in the air, not a sound exactly, but a kind of vibration. Cusco is awake, and today it is alive. It is the Inti Raymi, the festival of the sun, the most sacred celebration in all of Tawantinsuyu. You step into the plaza before dawn, wrapped in a borrowed cloak of alpaca wool. Already, people are gathering. Some have come from days away, farmers from distant valleys, jungle traders with bright feathers in their hair, nobles in tunics embroidered with gold thread. The air smells of smoke, sweet chicha, and anticipation. You feel it in your chest, something is about to begin. The sun crests the eastern ridge like a slow revelation. Its light spills down the valley, painting every rooftop gold. At that moment, a trumpet sounds, deep, mournful, made from a conch shell. The crowd hushes. From the Temple of the Sun, a procession begins. First come the priests, their robes heavy with dyed patterns and feathers. They carry sacred items, golden cups, ceremonial blades, bundles of coca leaves. Then the nobles, each one representing one of the four Suyus. They walk in perfect rhythm, stepping to a beat that is not drummed but remembered. And then, in the center, the Sapa Inca. He appears not as a man, but as a symbol, a living god. Draped in radiant cloth, his headdress feathers flutter like fire. The crowd bows, and some weep. You feel the weight of the moment. This is not a performance, this is renewal. The ceremony begins with offerings to Inti, the sun god. The high priest raises a golden disc toward the sky, chanting in Quechua. A fire is lit, not with flint, but with a polished mirror that captures the sun's rays and focuses them onto dried cotton. It catches flame with a sudden glow, and a collective gasp rises from the crowd. Then comes the sacrificial offering. A young llama, white and calm, is brought forth. Its fur is brushed, its eyes are covered. The priest murmurs blessings. With practiced grace, the ritual is completed. There is no spectacle, only solemnity. You notice something curious in some years. The Inca choose to use effigies instead. Dough figures shaped like llamas or birds, adorned with flowers. Even the gods, it seems, can be honored through metaphor. Today, it was real. Tomorrow, Perhaps not. Feasting follows. You're invited to a long mat lined with food-roasted maize, sweet potatoes, tamales wrapped in banana leaves. Women pour chicha into wooden cups carved with geometric symbols. A child offers you a slice of guinea pig, hot, crisp, and faintly spiced. You accept, chewing slowly, grateful. Music begins, slow at first, then faster. Flutes trill like birds, drums thump like heartbeats, dancers swirl into the plaza, their steps echoing stories older than conquest. Some wear masks, jaguars, condors, ancestors, and move in circles that mimic the sun's journey across the sky. A man beside you whispers, "Every step here is time." You watch a group of elders reenact the origin story of the Inca, how their ancestors emerged from Lake Titicaca, led by the god Viracocha, carrying golden staffs. Some historians question this tale, suggesting it was crafted to unify diverse peoples under a single myth. Others believe it reflects deeper cosmologies that predate even the Inca. Either way, you feel its power in the dance. As the sun begins to dip behind the hills, the Sapa Inca gives a final blessing. He raises his hands, and the crowd responds with a low chant, repeated over and over, a lullaby to the sun, asking it to return, to remember them. Then, slowly, the people begin to leave. You wander back through the city, the sound of music still echoing in alleyways, candles flicker in doorways, offerings of flowers and food rest at street corners. You see a group of children acting out the ceremony with wooden sticks and makeshift crowns. They laugh when one of them pretends to be the sun, arms wide, eyes closed. That night, you lie on your back in the plaza, surrounded by strangers who feel like kin. The stars blink awake. The Milky Way stretches above like a second river, flowing in tandem with the Urubamba below. The sun has set, but its warmth still lingers in your chest. You awaken before dawn in a quiet courtyard. The sky still a deep blue velvet overhead. Today, your steps take you behind the walls, not into temples or fortresses, but into the hidden spaces where women of the Inca Empire shape the world, stitch by stitch, thread by thread. You're invited into an aqllas, the house of the chosen women. From the outside, it appears plain, like any other stone building in Cusco, but inside, it hums with quiet activity and sacred rhythm. These are not ordinary women. They are aqllas, virgins of the sun, selected as children from villages across the empire for their beauty, skill, and potential. Some will become priestesses. Others will be gifted in marriage to nobles or warriors as marks of favor from the Sapa Inca. A few may become secondary wives of the emperor himself. But here, they train. You watch as a group of women sit cross-legged on woven mats, weaving cloth so fine it looks like mist held together by moonlight. Their fingers move swiftly, pulling thread from bundles of alpaca and vicuña wool, dyed with cochineal red, indigo, and sun-bleached yellow. One young woman invites you to sit beside her. She hands you a spindle, and you fumble with it awkwardly. She laughs softly, then guides your hands. The thread you spin wobbles, uneven, but she praises it anyway. She tells you they weave kompi, the finest cloth, used only for royalty and sacred offerings. It is worth more than gold. A single tunic might take months to complete, and will be worn only once, perhaps in a ritual, perhaps burned as a gift to the gods. You ask if she misses her village. She nods slowly. "Sometimes I dream of the wind there," she says. "But here, we serve the sun." In another room, older women prepare chicha, the ceremonial beer made from maize. They chew the kernels first, breaking them down with enzymes from their saliva before the mixture is boiled and left to ferment. The process is sacred, not casual. You sip from a ceremonial cup, wooden, carved with spirals. The taste is sour, thick, alive. One woman tells you the chicha is only offered on special days, festivals, royal births, celestial events. To brew it is an honor. To spill it is unthinkable. You pass through a shaded hallway where girls chant prayers in Quechua. Their voices rise like morning mist, soft, persistent, and ancient. You realize you're watching a form of power that rarely makes it into the story's ritual labor. Quiet influence, cultural continuity. Outside, a few aqllas tend to a garden of sacred herbs. Munya for the breath, akiote for dye, and coca for fatigue. A llama watches lazily from the corner, its ears twitching with disinterest. You're shown the workshop where ceremonial garments are embroidered. Gold thread is added carefully, and tiny shells from distant coasts are stitched into sleeves. You hold one tunic in your hands. It is light, but it seems to hold weight, of labor, of belief, of intention. A teacher explains that some of these garments are offered to the gods, some worn by emissaries, and some buried with the honored dead. To weave, in this place, is to write history, not with ink, but with thread. Historians continue to debate how much agency the aqllas truly had. Were they honored servants or secluded captives, empowered artisans or carefully placed symbols of control? The records left behind, often written by Spanish chroniclers, carry conflicting tones, admiration, discomfort, misunderstanding. But as you sit among them, listening to laughter over a tangled thread or the quiet resolve in a pair of focused hands, you feel neither helplessness nor ceremony. You feel presence, a calm kind of purpose. One elder tells you, "We don't make cloth, we make days." You ask what she means. She shrugs, smiling. Every moment has its shape. We just stitch it together. That night, you lie in a small corner of the courtyard, wrapped in a borrowed blanket. The stars above are cold and bright. The sound of spinning wheels and murmured chants lingers in the air, and in your dreams, you see a cloak, vast, shimmering, stitched not with thread, but with time. You awaken to a stillness that isn't peace, exactly. It's the kind of hush that settles when too many voices have gone quiet. You're in a small village on the empire's fringe, not far from the jungle, not far from the coast. And here, the colours are bright, the tongues varied, but something simmers beneath the surface. You've arrived in a place that bows to the Inca, but not entirely. The people smile, yes, they offer chicha. They raise their banners when the Sapa Inca sends his messengers, but the songs sung at night are not in Quechua. The prayers whispered into the river are for older gods, gods without golden temples. You sit beside a weaver who folds cloth that carries symbols you do not recognize, spirals, jaguar eyes, river currents. She says little, but hums a tune that ends every night in the same dissonant note. It doesn't resolve, it just stops. This is a village absorbed by Micmac policy, once independent, now settled by outsiders. Some families were brought in by the state. Others have been here far longer than Cusco has reigned. You learn that their tribute is paid, their labor counted, their children taught Quechua in state-run schools. But the loyalty, that's harder to measure. One man tells you quietly, They ask us to carry the sun on our backs. We do, but we still dream of the moon. You spend the morning following an official census taker. He checks quipu records, counts bags of maize, asks questions with trained politeness. The villagers respond, some honestly, some vaguely, some with silence. You notice one family lists fewer animals than they seem to own. The official doesn't press. He tells you later. Sometimes it's better not to count too carefully. That afternoon, you sit beneath a chirimoya tree where children are playing a game that mimics a state ritual. One child plays the Sapa Inca, another pretends to be a noble from the coast. But the rebel, always the smallest child, gets the most laughs. He runs away, refusing to bow. Everyone chases him, and he keeps escaping. You wonder if this is just play, or something deeper. The Inca Empire was a web of roads and record-keeping, but also of people and patience. Not all resistance comes with weapons. Some comes with silence, some with laughter, some with stories told in the wrong dialect. You speak with a young woman whose brother was taken to Cusco for schooling. She shrugs when asked if she'll go next. Maybe, she says. Or maybe I'll stay and listen to the stones. They still speak my language. In the evening, you're invited to a local ceremony, one not listed in the state calendar. It involves offerings of fruit, feathers, and a carved wooden cup filled with bitter tea. The chanting is rhythmic, different from what you've heard in Cusco. It loops and weaves like a snake. The stars seem to lean closer. A quiet man sitting beside you murmurs, "The Inca teach us how to live by the sun, but we still remember how to dance by the river." Historians debate the scale and subtlety of local resistance within the Inca Empire. Some point to open revolts, rare but present, while others focus on these quieter forms, cultural endurance, non-compliance, and identity preserved beneath the surface. You begin to understand that conquest is not always erased. Sometimes it is layered, and below the topsoil of empire lies the rich compost of what came before. As night falls, you sleep near the village square. A group of elders sits nearby, sharing stories in a dialect you can't quite follow, but their tone is soothing, warm. The fire crackles, the dogs sigh, and somewhere in the dark, the rebel child runs one more lap before bed. You awaken to footsteps on cobbled stone, faster, firmer than usual. The air in Cusco feels different today, not tense, not chaotic, but expectant, as if the mountains themselves are holding their breath. Whispers ripple through the city like cold water. The emperor is dead. Huayna Capac, the great unifier, has passed, not in Cusco, but far to the north, somewhere near Quito. His illness was sudden. Some say it was brought by strange men arriving on the coast, their breath fevered and their eyes pale. Others say it was fate, a turning in the stars. There is no firm successor, and that is the beginning of the unravelling. You walk the streets of the city and see people clustering in corners, voices low, eyes wide. A name surfaces again and again: Atahualpa, the emperor's son by a northern consort, favoured in Quito, a warrior, charismatic, respected, but not born of the Cusco nobility. Another name, quieter but sharp: Huasca, the legitimate heir by lineage, son of the queen, raised in the heart of the capital. His bloodline is pure, his claim secure. You pass an official who is marking quipus with red thread, a sign of emergency. The imperial records have been adjusted, quickly, carefully. Messengers are dispatched. Priests offer doubled sacrifices, but the fracture has already begun. The two brothers do not speak. At first, their tension is distant, a whisper along the road, a rumor passed by chasqui runners, but soon it becomes war, not with outsiders, with each other. You follow the movements of armies through the valleys, soldiers conscripted from every suyu, marching under banners once united. Llamas loaded with supplies, men wrapped in jaguar skins and painted with red ochre. No one cheers them. The songs are quiet. The fields are bare. Atahualpa claims the north, strong with military support, hardened by campaigns. He is brilliant on the field, swift and unrelenting. Huáscar, in Cusco, commands tradition, legitimacy, the favor of priests. But his generals falter and his trust begins to crack. A boy in the market draws a line in the dust with his sandal, pointing to either side and saying, "Here is Huáscar, here is Atahualpa. Which would you pick?" His friends laugh, but no one answers. You walk through a village where both sides have passed. The people are quiet, they offer hospitality, but their eyes are wary. Their loyalty is survival. One woman shows you two dolls she keeps in her cooking hearth, one wrapped in gold thread, the other in warrior paint. She kisses them both before stirring her stew. "I pray to whichever wins," she says with a shrug. I need both sons to bring back peace. Historians argue about the causes and details of this civil war. Some say it was inevitable, a result of imperial overreach, too many provinces and too much ambition. Others point to the role of outside disease weakening the state, or factionalism in the court. What's clear is this: the timing could not have been worse. For while brother battles brother, other forces stir on the horizon. You hear strange reports, pale-skinned men with long beards, riding animals no one has seen before. They bring thunder from sticks and wear armor like insects. They sail in floating houses and speak in sharp tongues. Their names, Pizarro, Almagro, are not yet feared, just noticed. But in Cusco, the empire has no time for whispers from the coast. You climb a hill above the city and look down at the stone rooftops, the golden temple walls, the winding sikhs. The sky is streaked with smoke. Somewhere below, both royal factions make offerings, as if the gods might choose a side. You wonder, can the sun cast two shadows that night? You sleep in the quiet between storms. The fire burns low. The empire is still whole, but only just. You awaken to the smell of salt on the air, rare in the highlands, and a breeze that feels strangely warm. You're no longer in Cusco, but far to the west, near the long stretch of coast where the mountains lean into the sea. The land is drier here, flatter, but the tension is heavier. You're standing with a group of local fishermen staring out to sea. On the horizon, unfamiliar shapes, tall wooden ships with white sails like wings. They do not move like anything the locals have ever seen. Some call them floating mountains. Others whisper that Viracocha, the creator god, has returned. But these are not gods. They are men. Spanish men. They step ashore in glinting armor, their faces shaded by wide helmets. They bring with them horses, animals that make the ground quake with every step. The people here have no word for horse. They simply say two men walking together. The Spanish, led by Francisco Pizarro, look around with eyes that weigh everything, not just land, but gold. The messengers are sent to Cusco. At this point, the Inca civil war is near its end. Atahualpa has triumphed. Huáscar has been captured and imprisoned. Atahualpa is in the northern city of Cajamarca, confident, celebrated, and entirely unaware that his world is about to tilt. You travel with one of the runners, a chasqui sent to deliver news to the emperor. Along the way, he passes through villages already confused by stories, men whose breath carries death, whose prayers are sharp, whose gods demand nothing but obedience. You pause in a small coastal town where a woman offers you a drink made of fermented cactus. She says the strangers don't eat the local food. They carry their own water, their own gods. One child shows you a crude drawing in the sand, a man with a cross on his chest, holding fire in his hand. You ask how he knows this. He says, "A soldier told me he was burned by the sound of the stick." You realize he means a musket. The stories grow stranger. The Spaniards bring disease. Invisible, unspeakable. Villages that once thrived now echo with coughs and sudden silence. Smallpox, though unknown by name, has already swept ahead of the invaders, softening resistance before it's even challenged. Still, many believe they can handle the visitors. They are few, maybe 160. Atahualpa, victorious after years of civil war, sees no threat in them. He agrees to meet them. He will regret that. You continue north and reach Cajamarca, just as the fateful encounter unfolds. The Spanish arrive with cannon, cavalry, and Catholic ritual. They come bearing crosses and demands. A Dominican friar offers Atahualpa a Bible, something he does not understand. He tosses it aside. It is the spark. The Spaniards open fire. Guns explode. Horses charge. Thousands of Atahualpa's unarmed attendants are cut down in minutes. He himself is taken prisoner, held in a stone chamber smaller than a granary. The emperor descended from the sun, captured by men barely known to him. It doesn't make sense. Not to the generals, not to the priests, not to the people. You hear the confusion in whispered prayers. How could this happen? How could a god be bound? Historians still argue how this moment came to pass. Some say it was pure treachery. Others credit Spanish steel and strategy. Some suggest that the Inca simply could not conceive of the full violence behind the European smile. But all agree it was a turning point, and it was not yet the end, not quite. That night, you pass the square where Atahualpa is held. The windows are dark. He does not cry out. He does not beg. He plans. But the sun feels colder tonight. The ocean winds press inland. And the mountains, once so firm, seem just a little farther away. You awaken before dawn on the edge of a silent square in Cajamarca, your breath visible in the cool morning air. The town, once a place of highland rhythm and routine, now feels like a paused heartbeat. Something is wrong, not loud, not panicked, just tilted. At the center of it all is a single room. You move closer. There are guards at the entrance, Spanish soldiers wrapped in armor and suspicion. Inside sits Atahualpa, the emperor of the Inca, seated not on a throne, but on a simple mat, surrounded by stone. He is alive, dignified, still calm, but he is no longer free. The room he occupies is not just any chamber. It is a prison of stone and gold. On its walls, a line has been drawn, high up near the ceiling. And Atahualpa has made a promise he will fill this room to that line, once with gold, twice with silver, in exchange for his release. The ransom room, they call it. You sit outside and watch messengers dart in and out, carrying orders, requests, commands. From all across the empire, gold begins to arrive: ceremonial vessels, bracelets, statues, temple offerings, even sacred artifacts that were never meant to leave their altars. You witness the arrival of a golden sun disk, once housed in the coricancha. It glints even in shade, too radiant for a room this small. You feel a knot form in your stomach. Something is wrong with this trade, but the gold keeps coming, day by day. The room fills, not with joy, but with weight, bowls, masks, jaguar figurines, necklaces, all stacked, sorted, melted. Spanish soldiers watch in fascination. Some call it a miracle, others call it plunder. A few do not call it anything at all, and Atahualpa waits. He does not tremble. He plays chess with a Spanish officer, teaches him Quechua phrases. He asks questions about the world beyond the mountains. He is not broken, only paused. One Spanish chronicler notes the way he walks, his posture, like a man still wearing a crown. He writes, and indeed, you see it too. Even in captivity, the emperor commands a silence that listens to him. But then, a shift. The gold has arrived, more than anyone could imagine. Enough to satisfy kings, enough to melt cities. And yet, the promise is not honoured. The Spaniards begin to murmur among themselves. Some are fearful, others ambitious. They worry Atahualpa, if released, could raise an army, that his people might rise in fury, that he might reclaim everything they just began to touch. And so they decide he will not be freed. You hear the sentence in hushed tones. Behind closed doors, death, by garrote, a rope twisted around the neck. To spare his soul, they say, he must convert. A priest offers baptism. Atahualpa, silent for a long time, eventually nods. He is christened Francisco, the same name as his captor. It is supposed to be mercy. On the night of his execution, the square is quiet. You stand among others who do not cry, do not speak, do not move. They simply watch. You do not see the moment. It happens inside. But when the doors reopen, there is only one thing to note. The god is gone. The man who once ruled 4/4 of the world, who rode on golden litters and was worshipped by thousands, now lies silent beneath the earth. Historians debate Atahualpa's role, whether he underestimated the Spanish, whether he negotiated wisely, whether his conversion was strategy or submission. But what none debate is the consequence: an empire cracked at the centre. The sun god's descendant has died not in battle, not in ceremony, but at the hands of strangers, inside a room lined with his people's offerings. And still, the people do not scream. They return to their villages, they tend their fields, they carry messages. But something behind their eyes has shifted. That night, you sit beside a small fountain. The stars above seem unsure of themselves. The moon glows faintly behind clouds, and the silence feels permanent. You awaken to the clink of metal, soft, rhythmic, unsettling. A forge has been set up near the square in Cajamarca, and Spaniards are melting gold under the morning sun. You step out and see what once gleamed in temples now pooling into dull, shapeless bars. The ransom has been taken, and the emperor it was meant to save is already dead. You walk past wooden crates filled with the freshly cast ingots, stacked like loaves of bread. Soldiers tally the pieces carefully, each bearing a mark, a weight, a name. What had been sacred, a sun disk, a jaguar mask, a ceremonial goblet, is now just metal, flattened, melted, erased. The locals watch in silence. A young man from Cusco, sent to oversee tribute, stares at a bar and mutters, "That was part of my ancestor's temple." He does not weep. He does not rage. He simply stares, as if trying to hear its last prayer. Nearby, Spanish officers argue over division. There are formulas now. Who gets how much, based on rank and deed. Even the king in Spain will take his share, though he's never seen the Andes, never heard Quechua in the wind. You speak with a soldier polishing his sword with a strip of cloth. He tells you that the value of the ransom exceeded 13,000 pounds of gold and 26,000 pounds of silver. Enough, he says, to buy kingdoms in Europe. And yet, they still feel uneasy. Gold, it turns out, doesn't make men sleep better. You travel with one of the caravans carrying treasure back toward the coast. Along the way, you pass villages where people lower their eyes or simply vanish into doorways. In one town, a woman sets down a gourd of water for the travellers but says nothing. You notice that her gold earrings are gone. They were likely taken, or offered, or something in between. Along the trail, one of the porters, a local man conscripted to carry ingots, collapses from the weight. The Spanish overseer curses, but another gives the man water and lets him rest. Even here, kindness flickers in patches, but it's a kindness out of place, like a song sung off key. You reach the coast, and ships wait like open mouths. The gold is loaded, the silver wrapped. The ocean breeze does not care. A local fisherman watches from the beach. He tells you that when he was a child, the sea was the end of the world. Now, he says, the end comes from the sea, back inland, in Cusco. Stories reach the capital. The emperor is dead, the ransom taken, but the Spanish remain. They say they come in peace. They say they bring God, but they also bring soldiers and more ships, and strangers who speak of kings and saints instead of Inti and Pachamama. People begin to whisper, why was the gold not enough? Why does the sun no longer protect its son? Some take down their temple offerings. Others bury their household charms. You watch a priest remove a carved staff from an altar and wrap it in cloth. For safer days, he murmurs. Historians continue to debate the symbolism of the ransom. Was it ever truly believed by the Spanish that Atahualpa would be freed? Or was it simply leverage, a glittering excuse? Some argue it was always a trick. Others believe the Spanish, divided among themselves, made decisions moment by moment, tangled in fear, greed, and uncertainty. Either way, the gold moved, and the emperor did not. You return to Cajamarca and find the ransom room empty now. The line still visible on the wall, the line he promised to fill. It's just a scratch in the plaster, but somehow it feels heavier than the treasure itself. You sit quietly beside it for a time. And in that room, stripped bare, you feel the truth echo in silence. It was never just gold. It was memory. It was trust. It was a world, melted. You awaken to a sound you haven't heard in days, the distinct rhythm of Quechua chanting, echoing through the high corridors of Cusco. But it is different now, not celebratory, not ceremonial. It's quieter and heavier. The capital has changed. You walk its streets and notice the subtle shifts. Spanish soldiers posted at temple entrances, foreign flags fluttering awkwardly beside the Inca banners, churches rising from foundations once sacred to the sun. The buildings still stand. The stones are still perfect, but the spirit is altered. The Inca Empire has not yet fallen, but it has fractured. Atahualpa is dead. The ransom was not honored, and now power scrambles like scattered beads on a broken thread. In his place, the Spaniards install a puppet emperor, Tupac Hualpa, a brother of Huascar, chosen not for strength or lineage, but for compliance. He is crowned, paraded, and gently ignored. You witness the coronation. The plaza is quiet, the people more curious than reverent. There is no thunderous chant, no festival, just the rustle of fabric and the distant ring of a hammer rebuilding something no one asked for. Tupac Hualpa dies shortly after. Illness, some say. Poison, others whisper. The truth lies somewhere in the fog of confusion. What's certain is that Cusco is now ruled not by bloodlines, but by appointment, and outside its walls, the empire begins to splinter. You travel with a band of local warriors moving south. They speak in short bursts, weary and sharp. Some served Huasca, others Atahualpa. Now they serve no one. One man says, "We fight for the land now, not for crowns." Villages once firm in loyalty now grow cautious. Some welcome the Spanish, hoping for mercy. Others fortify themselves in the mountains, preparing for resistance. You arrive at one such mountain settlement, Ollantaytambo, where stone walls are thick and spirits are thin. A leader named Manco Inca has risen, young but determined. He speaks of reclaiming Cusco, of uniting the fragments, of pushing the Spaniards into the sea. At first, the Spanish tolerate him. They believe him useful. They prop him up as another puppet. But Manco is watching, learning. He sees how the Spanish move, how they argue, how they hunger for control, not just gold. One night, in secret, Manco flees the city and rides into the sacred valley with a small band of followers. You join the trail days later and find him gathering strength. Warriors, supplies, messengers. He's soft-spoken, but sharp. They build with our stones, he says, but they do not know what holds them together, and so resistance begins. Manco Inca launches a siege on Cusco, nearly a year long. You stand on the hillside above the city and see smoke rise from temples turned into barracks. Sling stones rain from the sky, and shouts echo from ancient walls. The Spanish defend fiercely, bolstered by local allies and unfamiliar weapons. Cannons thunder, fire spreads. But the war is not just physical, it's spiritual. Each battle is a question: who does the land belong to? Now historians describe this time as the beginning of the Neo-Inca state. A moment where the old empire doesn't die, but transforms, shrinks, moves. The royal court relocates to Vilcabamba, deep in the jungle where mountains and mist offer protection. You go there now, following the retreat. The road is hard, the trail's overgrown, but the welcome is warm in Vilcabamba. The Inca still perform rituals, still speak of sun gods and sacred rivers, but the tone has changed. It is less about grandeur now, and more about preservation. A priest tells you, we do not need an empire, we need memory. That night, you sit with warriors sharpening blades made from bronze, not steel. One woman braids a cord into her son's hair and says, he will not see Cusco, but he will know its name. You lie down beneath stars not yet renamed, in a kingdom not yet fallen, in a story not yet over. But in your heart, you feel the weight of an empire learning how to disappear, not in fire, but in fragments. You awaken deep in the lush, tangled greenery of the Vilcabamba jungle. The air is thick with the scent of moss and wild orchids, and the distant calls of birds unfamiliar to the highlands. You followed the footsteps of a fading empire, an empire no longer sprawled across mountains, but folded into the embrace of forest and mist. This is the last refuge of the Inca, a hidden kingdom carved from stone and shadow, where the rulers of old continue to dream beneath a green canopy. You find yourself among the remnants of a royal court, not vast like Cusco's, but intimate and guarded. Tupac Amaru, the final Sapa Inca of this last stronghold, moves quietly through these stone halls, bearing the weight of centuries on his shoulders. His eyes are sharp, his voice low, but his spirit burns as brightly as the sun once did. The jungle around you hums with life and secrecy. Stone terraces cling to steep slopes, fed by mountain streams that sing songs older than empire. You see terraces still cultivated, maize, potatoes, quinoa, fed by hands both fierce and faithful. But the world outside is changing faster than these hills can hold. Spanish forces hunt the last Inca like shadows in the trees. Rumors reach you of battles fought in the dark, of betrayals, and of broken alliances. The old gods seem distant here, replaced by prayers whispered to Pachamama, the Earth Mother, and promises made to ancestors unseen. You walk through a quiet plaza where children play among moss-covered stones. One boy shows you a wooden whistle carved like a condor. "This is the last song of the empire," he says softly. "It carries our dreams." The court prepares for inevitable loss. Ceremonies honor the past and steel the spirit for what must come. Warriors sharpen weapons and tell stories not just of victory, but of endurance. A scribe writes in quipu, knotting threads that may never be read again. You sense a fragile balance here between hope and surrender, memory and oblivion. Historians often call Vilcabamba the Neo-Inca state, a final gasp of independence that lasted over 3 decades after Cusco fell. Some celebrate it as resistance, others see it as a tragic coda. But here, among these stones and whispers, it is simply home. You witness a council where elders debate whether to fight or flee deeper into the jungle. The air is thick with tension and exhaustion. The decisions are heavy. The choice is few. One elder, his face carved with age and wisdom, tells you, "We hold the mountain holds us." But the sea creeps closer every day. You sit by a fire that night, the stars like cold diamonds overhead. The jungle murmurs a lullaby, not of conquest, but of quiet survival. And as sleep takes you, you carry the weight of a kingdom, one that chose to fade with dignity rather than shatter with fury. You awaken under a blanket of stars, deep in the heart of the Andean night. The jungle around you breathes softly, a living tapestry of shadow and sound. Here in Vilcabamba, the last ember of the Inca Empire flickers, faint, fragile, but not yet extinguished. You sit quietly with those who remain, elders, warriors, women, and children, each carrying a piece of a fading world. There are no grand palaces here, no towering temples, just stone houses cloaked in vines, hearth fires glowing against the dark, and whispers carried on the wind. The empire has vanished from maps and courts, but its soul lingers. You listen as a storyteller recounts tales of Pachacuti's vision, the great roads, the sun temples, and the golden llamas. His voice is low, weaving memories like thread through the night. Around you, others add their own stories about brave warriors, hidden shrines, and songs that outlast the stone. The past and present mingle like mist. You feel the pulse of the Andes beneath you, steady, slow, eternal. The mountains do not forget. The rivers do not cease to flow. The sun rises and falls as it always has. In this final sanctuary, the Inca do not resist with swords, but with remembrance. They do not conquer, but endure. As the night deepens, you close your eyes and let your breath match the rhythm of the earth. You feel the embrace of the mountains, the cool kiss of the air, and the soft warmth of history unfolding around you. You drift gently, not away from but into the story. The great empire that reshaped the world now reshapes your dreams. You are part of this moment, this memory, this quiet eternity, and with that, your journey ends. Now, rest. The sun has set, the empire sleeps, before you drift fully into peaceful slumber. Thank you for listening to this tale. Please take a moment to like this video. Leave a gentle comment about your favourite moment in the Inca story, and subscribe to keep these soothing tales coming your way. Where are you listening from? What time is it where you are now? Dim the lights, settle in, and let these gentle whispers of history carry you to your dreams. Good night, dear listener.